Hi, I'm Kevin Roberts, and welcome once again to our show. Today, we're going to learn about ADHD, autism, and bipolar disorder through the lens of art. You will come away from this video with not only a greater appreciation for neurodivergence, but also for the creative and imaginative wonders of the world of art. Now, I've helped a lot of neurodivergent people over the last 3 decades. I have worked with people who have gone on to become dentists, doctors, lawyers, explosives experts, filmmakers, addiction counselors. I have found that creativity, imagination, and offbeat personalities are very common in the neurodivergent folks I have worked with. It's easy to focus on the challenges like executive function deficits, mood issues, social anxiety, and anxiety in general. But there are also positives, and I think it is really important to never lose sight of that. And that's why we're doing this video. Over the centuries, it's clear that neurodivergence has fueled the unconventional creativity of many artists. While historical diagnoses are speculative, many of the traits found in journals, biographies, and recollections from even friends and family align strongly with modern understandings of neurodivergence. One of my coaching clients works for a major movie studio, and every time I see her name credited at the end of a wonderful film, I'm reminded of the great contributions of neurodivergent people to human culture and society. Now, before we get into our first artist, one of the all time masters, please take a second to like, subscribe, and share to help get this positive message out to the people who really need it. Now, we start with one of the greatest artists of all time, Michelangelo, who lived from 1475 to 1564. His obsessive perfectionism fueled breathtaking masterpieces like the Sistine Chapel, redefining Renaissance art through divine detail. His suspected neurodivergent? Autism. Why? Well, he had intense focus and obsession, worked for years on single projects like the Sistine Chapel, often forgetting to eat or sleep. He had social difficulties. He was described as solitary, abrasive, and socially awkward. He had rigid routines, refused to change plans, even for the Pope. And he had sensory sensitivities. He hated the smell of certain types of paint, for example, possibly indicating hypersensitive sense of smell. I have that one too. Certain odors could enrage Michelangelo. So, what's the evidence? Well, just to name a few, his biographer Giorgio Vasari noticed his melancholic temperament and obsessive, detail oriented nature. Modern research, like the investigation of Arshad and Fitzgerald, which is something like 2005, suggests strongly that autism fits his traits. Second guy, another Italian, Leonardo da Vinci, 1452 to like 1518, 1519. His boundless curiosity produced the Mona Lisa and visionary inventions. And that guy bridged art and science like nobody else. His suspected neurodivergence? ADHD, ladies and gentlemen. Chronic procrastination. He left works like The Last Supper unfinished for years due to experimentation. Hyperfocus and distractibility. He jumped between anatomy, engineering, and art obsessively back and forth, and he had a very disorganized life. Moved constantly, struggled with deadlines, and kept very chaotic notebooks. What is the evidence? Well, you could turn to the historian Marco Catani, who a few years ago argued that his behavior aligns closely with ADHD, and his notebooks show a scattered, very non-linear style of thinking. Next guy, Vincent Van Gogh, who lived 1850s to somewhere close to 1890, I believe. His emotional intensity and synesthesia birthed swirling, emotive works like Starry Night, revolutionizing expressionism after his death. He was suspected of having bipolar disorder and autism. Why? He had extreme mood swings, manic productivity, and followed by deep depression. Sensory sensitivities. Van Gogh wrote about being overwhelmed by sounds and light, had social struggles, isolated himself, struggled with relationships, and he had hypergraphia. Wrote 800 plus emotionally intense letters. By the way, in Britain, they call him Van Gogh. So, what is the evidence? Well, he was diagnosed actually with epilepsy and mania by doctors at the time. And in 2002, Dutch psychologist Dietrich Bloomer studied Van Gogh's journals and writings of people who knew him, and he suggested that bipolar disorder and temporal lobe epilepsy were both likely. Now we turn to a French artist, Paul Gauguin, 1848 to 1903. He was rebellious, restless, and his bold colors and Tahitian escapism shattered European conventions, paving the way for what we call modern primitivism. So, what are his suspected neurodivergence? ADHD, bipolar. Why? Well, he had impulsive life choices. He abandoned his family to paint in Tahiti. He was restless, constantly moved. France, Panama, Martinique, Polynesia. And he was emotionally unstable. Volatile relationships and also depressive and long-lasting depressive episodes. So, what's the evidence? Well, his letters certainly reveal erratic behavior and poor impulse control. I've read many of these. Many art historians note parallels with ADHD and bipolar type creativity. Another guy, French guy, Henri de Toulouse-Lautrec, loves saying that, 1864-1901. His physical disabilities and probable depression fueled raw, empathetic portrayals of Parisian nightlife, and he really immortalized many marginalized voices through his art. He's suspected of ADHD and autism. His hyper-focus is the main thing. He produced thousands of works of art despite chronic pain. He had social difficulties. He was ostracized due to his disability, dwarfism, and many neurodivergent traits like unstable moods and emotional dysregulation. He was sensory-seeking. He immersed himself in loud, chaotic environments like the famous Moulin Rouge. What's the evidence? His family described him as eccentric and obsessive. His art's repetitive themes, cabaret themes, particularly cabaret scenes, suggest fixation. He was described as interminably restless by family members. Now we turn to Spain. Pablo Picasso, 1881 to 1973. His hypergraphia and relentless energy drove his radical styles, like Cubism, making him the most influential artist of the 20th century. What was he suspected of? Dyslexia. Why? He struggled in school. Teachers called him slow, couldn't read or write well. He's a visual thinker, compensated with drawing. Many scholars feel that Cubism may reflect dyslexic style perception. Dyslexic people have different kind of brains. Disorganized habits, chaotic studio, erratic schedules. So what's the evidence? Well, his childhood report cards describe learning difficulties. Dyslexia researchers cite his symbolic art style as typical of a dyslexic mind. Now, I think this point warrants a bit more explanation. Cubism, with its fragmented perspectives and multiple viewpoints, may resonate with the dyslexic perception style because it challenges the conventional linear and sequential way of understanding the world, which can be a struggle for individuals with dyslexia. Cubism, in a way, mirrors the nonlinear spatial way some dyslexic individuals experience and process information. I have worked with a lot of people with dyslexia, some of the most creative people I've ever met. Now we turn to the United States. Jackson Pollock, he lived a very short life, 1912 to the mid-1950s. Can't remember the year. His innovative techniques really erupted into chaotic drip paintings and redefined art as a physical, psychological act. He was suspected of bipolar disorder and ADHD. Why? Well, he was impulsive, alcoholism, reckless behavior, and mood swings. Hyperfocus, painted in frenzied, kind of trance-like states, the famous drip paintings. And he was physically hyperactive. He used full body movements to create art. What's the evidence? Well, therapists noted depressive and manic episodes, and friends described his extreme energy shifts. Now we turn to a guy, Andy Warhol, 1928, 1987. Socially awkward, for sure. His pop art blurred or blended high art and mass culture, foreshadowing our obsession with fame and repetition. Suspected neurodivergence, autism. Asperger's, which is no longer an official diagnosis, is also used. It's still a useful term, in my opinion. So, what's the evidence? Social awkwardness, monotonal speech. He avoided eye contact, used scripted replies to interact with people. Repetitive behaviors, collected identical items, wigs, soup cans, etc. Routine bound, ate the same meal, Campbell's soup daily for decades. Remember those famous paintings? Sensory issues, he wore sunglasses even indoors and really hated physical touch. So, what's the evidence? One biographer, Wayne Kestenbaum, describes his robot like demeanor, and many autism researchers have cited him as somewhat of a textbook case. So, pretty clearly, I hope I've made a case that neurodivergent individuals, like people with ADHD, autism, dyslexia, other cognitive differences, bring unparalleled creativity, innovation, and depth to society. Their unique perspectives fuel breakthroughs, in my opinion. Some autistic thinkers excel in pattern recognition, leading to advancements in tech and science. ADHD brains thrive in dynamic problem solving, driving entrepreneurship. And dyslexic minds often master big picture thinking, revolutionizing design and storytelling. You know, many iconic innovators, from Einstein to Temple Grandin, were certainly neurodivergent. Their out of the box approaches challenged norms, fostered empathy, and redefined success in many ways. By valuing neurodiversity, we unlock hidden potential, turning perceived weaknesses into societal strengths, strengths that we can all benefit from. The world needs their brilliance to solve complex problems and inspire progress. Now, thanks for watching. And if you have enjoyed learning about how neurodivergent people often make great contributions to this world, please like and subscribe right now so that we can get this important information out to the people who need it. Have a great day. Thanks for supporting the channel, and I look forward to seeing you real soon.